Hello, my dear listeners, and welcome back to the Kapeel Gupta Career PodShow. And today, I want you to imagine a room. It is quiet. There are no machines making loud sounds. There's no dramatic background music. There is only one chair, one table, one notebook, and two people. Now, one of them is a college student named Raghav. From the outside, Raghav looks perfectly fine. He attends classes, laughs with friends, and posts birthday stories at exactly midnight. But for several months, he has been unable to sleep properly. His concentration has fallen. His heart starts racing before exams. He has stopped enjoying things he once loved. Everyone around him has advice. His friend says, "Bro, chill." His relative says, "Think positively." YouTube says, "Wake up at 5 a.m." Instagram says, "Become unstoppable." Raghav is exhausted from being told to become unstoppable. He would first like to understand why he feels unable to start. So, sitting across from him is a clinical psychologist. The psychologist does not judge him, lecture him, or throw motivational quotes at him like confetti. She listens carefully. She asks structured questions. She studies his thoughts, emotions, behavior, sleep, relationships, and academic pressure. She may use psychological assessments when required. She slowly helps Raghav understand what is happening and develops a suitable treatment plan. Now, that is the career we are exploring today. So, hi, I'm Kapeel Gupta, career coach, life mentor, graphotherapist, and the founder of Study Abroad Academy. I help students, parents, and young professionals gain clarity, confidence, and direction in life and career through deep coaching, mindset transformation, and the powerful practice of graphotherapy. Because career success is not just about choosing the right course. It's about becoming the right person for the life you truly want to build. So let's dive in. A clinical psychologist is a trained mental health professional who assesses, understands, and treats psychological, emotional, and behavioral difficulties. And let me clear up one myth immediately. A clinical psychologist is not a mind reader. They cannot look at you for 5 seconds and announce, "Oh, you have trust issues because you chose the corner seat." They work through education, scientific knowledge, supervised clinical training, psychological assessment, research, and evidence based therapies. So, if you're a student who is curious about human behavior, cares deeply about people, and enjoy both science and meaningful conversation, the career of a clinical psychologist may speak to you. But caring about people is only the beginning. To succeed in this field, you need professional training, emotional maturity, ethics, patience, and the ability to listen without making every conversation about yourself. So let's now understand the career properly. A clinical psychologist works with people experiencing mental health, emotional, cognitive, or behavioral difficulties. They may support someone dealing with anxiety, depression, obsessive thoughts, trauma, addiction, relationship difficulties, learning problems, chronic illness, or serious mental health conditions. They may also work with children facing developmental or behavioral concerns, adults recovering from brain injuries, elderly people experiencing memory difficulties, families coping with illness, or students struggling with severe academic and emotional pressure. However, a clinical psychologist does not simply sit and say, "Oh, and how does that make you feel?" for 8 hours. Listening is important, but the profession involves much more. Clinical psychologists conduct detailed interviews. They assess symptoms and behavior. They may administer psychological tests. They create a psychological understanding of the person's difficulty, known professionally as a formulation. They plan and deliver therapy. They monitor progress. They maintain confidential records. They work with families and other healthcare professionals. Many also conduct research, teach students, or supervise younger professionals. Clinical psychology combines the human heart with the scientific mind. You need compassion, but you also need evidence. You need warmth, but you also need boundaries. You need to understand emotions, but you cannot allow every client's pain to become your personal pain. That balance is what makes this career both rewarding and demanding. Clinical psychologist, counselor, and psychiatrist. Now, what is the difference? So, these titles are often mixed together, especially on social media. Someone attends a short online course and suddenly writes psychologist in their bio. Somebody gives good advice to friends and begins thinking they are ready to treat mental health conditions. Professional mental health work does not operate like that. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor. A psychiatrist completes medical education and specializes in psychiatry. Psychiatrists can prescribe medication and medically manage mental health conditions. A clinical psychologist is not a medical doctor. Clinical psychologists mainly work through psychological assessments, diagnosis, formulation, psychotherapy, behavioral intervention, rehabilitation, and research. They usually work alongside psychiatrists, physicians, psychiatric social workers, nurses, and other professionals. A counselor may help people manage personal, educational, relationship, or adjustment concerns. However, the training and legal scope of a counselor are not automatically the same as those of an RCI registered clinical psychologist. This distinction matters greatly for students. Completing a general bachelor's or master's degree in psychology does not automatically make someone a registered clinical psychologist in India. The title requires the correct recognized professional qualification and registration. So please do not choose a course because its advertisement uses beautiful words like clinical exposure, therapy training, or international certification. Check whether the qualification is recognized for the professional role you want. In mental health care, a wrong course decision does not merely waste money, it may block your rights to practice. And then the scope. Yes, it is growing in India because conversations around mental health are slowly becoming more open. Students are talking about exam anxiety. Young professionals are discussing burnout. Parents are becoming more aware of learning difficulties and developmental conditions. Hospitals increasingly recognize that health is not only physical. Workplaces are beginning to understand that emotional well being affects performance. At the same time, India continues to face a shortage of trained mental health professionals. This creates a real need for properly qualified clinical psychologists. A clinical psychologist in India may work in a government or private hospital, mental health institute, rehabilitation center, child guidance clinic, de-addiction center, university, research institution, NGO, community mental health program, or private practice. Some work with children and adolescents. Some specialize in adult mental health. Some move into neuropsychology and work with brain injuries, neurological conditions, or cognitive difficulties. Others work in psycho-oncology, helping people and families cope with cancer. There are also opportunities in geriatric mental health, rehabilitation, addiction treatment, trauma care, forensic services, and community mental health. Clinical psychologists may contribute to school and college mental health programs, although professional roles and qualifications must be clearly defined. Digital mental health services and teleconsultation have also expanded access. However, online practice still requires the same ethics, confidentiality, and professional competence as face to face work. A video call does not reduce professional responsibility. Government programs also create opportunities. District mental health teams include clinical psychologists, and mental health institutes need professionals for patient care, teaching, training, and research. The opportunity is not limited to metropolitan cities. India needs culturally aware professionals who can work in regional languages and understand local family systems. A therapy model copied from another country cannot always be applied without considering Indian realities. Imagine telling an Indian student simply ignore family expectations. That may sound easy in a textbook. In real life, the family may be sitting in the next room, calling 3 times and asking about the exam result. A strong clinical psychologist understands the person as well as the social world around that person. Internationally, clinical psychology is an established and respected healthcare profession. Clinical psychologists work in public health systems, private hospitals, universities, community clinics, rehabilitation services, correctional settings, veteran services, child development centers, and independent practices. Countries such as the United Kingdom, United States, Canada, and Australia have structured professional pathways, but each has its own licensing system. So, this point is very important for study abroad aspirants. Studying psychology abroad does not automatically give you the right to practice anywhere in the world. The UK generally requires an accredited professional doctorate in clinical psychology and registration with the Health and Care Professions Council. In the United States, the usual path involves a doctoral qualification such as PhD or PsyD, supervised clinical training, internship requirements, and state licensing. Since rules vary by state, students must study the licensing requirements before selecting a program. Australia, it follows its own accredited training and registration pathway. Canada also has provincial rules that may differ regarding doctoral qualifications, supervised practice, and examinations. Therefore, never choose an international psychology program based only on rankings, campus photographs, or the word clinical in the title. Ask 3 questions. Does this program provide professional clinical training? Is it accredited by the relevant regulator? Or will it lead towards registration in the country where I want to work? Now, these questions can save years of confusion. So now let's imagine a normal working day in the life of a clinical psychologist. At 9 in the morning, the clinical psychologist reviews the day's appointments and previous case notes. The first client may be a teenager who has stopped attending school because of severe anxiety. The psychologist speaks with the student and, where appropriate, the parents. The goal is not to blame the child or announce that the mobile phone is responsible for every problem known to mankind. The psychologist tries to understand when the problem began, what makes it worse, what the student fears, and how the family responds. The next appointment may involve a psychological assessment. The psychologist may use standardized tools to study intelligence, personality, attention, memory, learning, emotional functioning, or neuropsychological abilities. Psychological testing is not an online quiz telling you which cartoon character matches your personality. Tests must be selected carefully, administered properly, scored correctly, and interpreted within the person's background and clinical situation. After that may come a therapy session with a young professional facing panic attacks. Depending on the person's needs and the psychologist's training, treatment may involve cognitive behavioral therapy, behavioral methods, supportive therapy, family interventions, or another recognized psychological approach. Later, the psychologist may attend a team meeting with a psychiatrist, psychiatric social worker, and medical professionals. They discuss treatment progress, risk, family support, and rehabilitation. A psychiatrist may manage medication. The clinical psychologist may focus on assessment, therapy, behavioral change, and psychological recovery. Now, the afternoon may include report writing. And this is the part social media rarely shows. Mental health careers involve documentation. Every session is not a beautiful conversation followed by soft music. Professionals must write accurate notes, prepare reports, maintain confidentiality, and record important clinical decisions. The day may also include supervision. Even trained psychologists discuss difficult cases with experienced supervisors while protecting the client's identity and confidentiality. In teaching hospitals, clinical psychologists may train students, conduct research, and present academic work. The work can happen in an outpatient clinic, hospital ward, rehabilitation center, school linked service, community setting, laboratory, university, or private consultation room. Some days are deeply rewarding. You may watch a person slowly return to college, rebuild a relationship, regain confidence, or manage symptoms that once controlled their life. Other days are emotionally heavy. Progress may be slow, some clients may stop treatment, families may resist psychological explanations, emergency situations may arise. A psychologist must remain compassionate while also protecting their own well being. The human mind does not come with a restart button. This career requires respect for slow progress. And now, let's discuss the skills required to become a clinical psychologist. The first skill is listening. But professional listening is different from waiting for your turn to speak. You must notice words, pauses, emotions, behavior, and contradictions without jumping to quick conclusions. The second skill is empathy. Empathy means understanding another person's experience without judging it. But empathy does not mean agreeing with everything or becoming emotionally lost in another person's problem. The third skill is analytical thinking. Clinical psychologists collect information from interviews, observations, assessments, medical history, and family context. They must connect the information carefully and avoid careless assumptions. Research skill is also important. Clinical psychology is based on evidence. You need to understand research methods, statistics, and how to judge whether a treatment claim is reliable. Then comes communication. You will need to explain a complex condition to a frightened parent, discuss findings with the doctor, write a formal report, or speak to a child using language the child understands. Confidentiality and ethics are central. Clients share deeply personal information. A psychologist must know what must remain private and when safety or legal responsibilities require action. Patience is essential because human change is rarely instant. So, emotional resilience is also important. You will hear painful stories. You may work with trauma, grief, abuse, self harm risk, or serious illness. Professionals need supervision, healthy boundaries, and their own support systems. Finally, you need humility. A good clinical psychologist does not pretend to have every answer. They recognize their limits, refer when necessary, and continue learning throughout their career. And now, let's talk about educational qualifications required in India. And this is the most important section because the pathway is currently evolving. After class 12, one common starting route is a bachelor's degree with psychology as the main subject. Depending on the university, this may be a BA, BSc, honors, or 4-year psychology program. RCI has also introduced a 4-year bachelor in clinical psychology. However, students must understand that completing this program leads to the separate category of clinical assessment in clinical psychology. It does not automatically give the same independent scope as a registered clinical psychologist. To become a professionally registered clinical psychologist, students need to complete an RCI recognized professional qualification that leads to the appropriate registration category. RCI currently lists a 2-year master's in clinical psychology, the continuing MPhil clinical psychology pathway, a professional diploma, and a 4-year PsyD route. Because these structures are changing. Students entering the field 2026 must not rely on an old blog, old YouTube video, or previous students' pathway. Check the current RCI list for the exact academic session. Confirm that the institution is approved for that particular course and intake. Confirm what professional registration the program provides after completion. A university may be recognized generally, but still not have RCI approval for a specific clinical psychology course. So that difference is extremely important. Admission to advanced professional programs is competitive. Selection may include academic marks, entrance examinations, interviews, and assessment of psychology knowledge, researchability, and suitability for clinical work. Students should build a strong foundation in abnormal psychology, developmental psychology, personality, biological psychology, research methods, statistics, and psychological assessment. Relevant internships and volunteer exposure can help you understand the field, but they do not replace professional qualifications. A 2-week counseling workshop may improve awareness. It cannot turn someone into a clinical psychologist. And now, let's understand strong institutions to explore in India. So rather than declaring one institution universally best, students should compare RCI recognition, clinical exposure, faculty, patient load, supervision, research, and the current approved intake. NIMHANS in Bengaluru is one of India's leading mental health and neuroscience institutions. Its ecosystem includes specialized clinical services, teaching, research, and exposure to diverse mental health conditions. The Central Institute of Psychiatry in Ranchi has a long history of clinical psychology education and currently lists professional clinical psychology training. The Institute of Human Behavior Allied Sciences in Delhi has also conducted clinical psychology training and provides mental health services within a multidisciplinary environment. Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital in New Delhi has been associated with recognized clinical psychology training and hospital-based clinical exposure. However, this is a transition period. A respected institution's history does not guarantee that the exact program you want has approval for the year in which you apply. So the final check must always be the latest RCI recognized institution and course list. And now, let's talk about strong universities and training routes abroad. In the UK, University College London offers a 3-year doctorate in clinical psychology that combines academic learning, research, and supervised clinical placements. King's College London also offers an accredited 3-year doctorate in clinical psychology with structured teaching, research, and clinical placements. These programs are highly competitive and usually require an appropriate psychology background, research ability, and relevant experience. In Australia, the University of Melbourne offers an accredited Master of Psychology in Clinical Psychology. Students must still study the complete Australian registration pathway and entry requirements before applying. In the United States, there is no single university list that suits everyone. Students should search the APA accredited PhD or PsyD programs in clinical psychology and then examine internship outcomes, research fit, funding, placement quality, and state licensing compatibility. Strong universities may include well-known research institutions, but brand name alone is not enough. A famous psychology degree that does not lead towards professional registration may be excellent for research but unsuitable for someone whose main goal is clinical practice. Choose the pathway, not merely the logo. And now, let us discuss the question everyone pretends is secondary until the admission fee has to be paid. That is, how much does a clinical psychologist earn? In India, public salary data is still limited and varies widely. Current reported averages are around 32,000 rupees per month, but this figure should be treated only as a rough benchmark because the available sample is small. Early career salaried roles may offer approximately 25,000 to 50,000 rupees per month, depending on the city, employer, qualification, and level of responsibility. Hospital-based roles, specialist centers, and experienced positions may offer more. Government salaries depend on the post, pay structure, and recruitment conditions. With experience, some clinical psychologists move into senior hospital roles, supervision, teaching, research, consulting, or private practice. Private practice income can vary greatly. It depends on location, experience, specialization, professional reputation, ethical caseload, fees, and the time required to build trust. Please do not assume that opening an Instagram page on Monday will create a full private practice by Friday. This profession grows through competence and credibility. The financial journey may be slower in the beginning than in some corporate careers. However, specialized skills and professional trust can create stronger opportunities over time. In the United States, the median annual salary for clinical and counseling psychologists was approximately $95,800 in 2024. Actual earnings vary by state, experience, work setting, and level of qualification. In Canada, the national median wage is about 52.88 Canadian dollars per hour, with meaningful differences across provinces and employment settings. In the UK, pay is often connected with NHS bands, experience, and seniority. Qualified clinical psychologists can progress into specialist, consultant, leadership, teaching, and research positions. International salaries may look attractive when converted into rupees, but students must also consider taxation, living costs, licensing expenses, supervised training requirements, and immigration conditions. A foreign salary should never be studied without a foreign cost of living. The calculator may get excited. Your rent will bring it back to reality. So, let's understand the advantages and challenges of this career. See, the biggest reward is meaning. You may help someone understand themselves, manage distress, improve relationships, return to education, or rebuild daily functioning. The career also offers variety. You can specialize, conduct research, teach, work in hospitals, or eventually build an ethical private practice. But there are challenges. The training is long and competitive. Entry-level salaries in India may disappoint some students. The work can be emotionally demanding, and documentation and supervision require time. Professional boundaries must be maintained. You must also accept that not every client improves quickly. This career should not be chosen only because you are the therapist friend in your group. Being supportive is a lovely quality. Clinical practice requires much more. Scientific training, ethical responsibility, emotional stability, assessment skills, and years of supervised learning. Choose it because you respect both people and professional discipline. So let's now return to Raghav. After several sessions, his life does not become perfect overnight, but he starts understanding his anxiety. He learns to notice the thoughts that increase his fear. He builds healthier routines. His family learns how to support him without increasing pressure. And when necessary, the psychologist works with other healthcare professionals. Slowly, Raghav stops feeling that he's fighting an invisible enemy alone. And that is the quiet power of a clinical psychologist. They do not live another person's life for them. They help the person understand their mind, develop healthier ways of coping, and regain the ability to move forward. A clinical psychologist does not rescue people like a movie hero. They walk beside people while those people learn to rescue parts of themselves. That makes this one of the most human careers in the world. But humanity without training can cause harm. So if this career attracts you, respect the journey, study psychology deeply, choose recognized training, build research skills, seek supervised experience, protect ethics, and keep learning. Do not only ask, do I like helping people? Ask, am I willing to train seriously, listen patiently, think scientifically, and carry professional responsibility? If your answer is yes, clinical psychology may become more than a career. It may become meaningful work through which knowledge and compassion meet. And now, let me speak directly to the student or parent listening to this episode. If today's episode on the clinical psychologist career opened your mind to a profession you had never seriously considered, imagine how many more right fit careers may still be hidden from you. Perhaps you're interested in psychology but confused between clinical psychology, counseling psychology, psychiatric, social work, neuroscience, special education, or organizational psychology. These careers may sound related, but their qualification, responsibilities, and professional pathways are very different. The right career is not found through guesswork, pressure, or one interesting reel. It's found through clarity. Through my career counseling program, I help students understand their strengths, interests, personality, values, and future possibilities. Together, we identify the right career direction, subjects, courses, colleges, skill building roadmap, and study abroad options. So if you feel drawn towards psychology or another people focused profession but do not know which path truly fits you, message me the word psychology. Let us explore whether this career matches not only your interest but also your aptitude, temperament, and long term goals. Your dream career was never lost. It was simply unread. So let us decode it together. This is Kapeel Gupta. You're listening to the Kapeel Gupta Career PodShow. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, understanding the human mind is not only about reading people, it's about learning how to serve them responsibly.